with another Captain Dirty Reacts. Today we're going to be looking at the long-awaited The Cargo Show. Let's see what the boys over at CIG have got for us.
Cargo.
We're moving away from the simplistic implementation that we had before into something that's more of a real simulation.
With the new physicalized cargo, it opens doors for us to give some new gameplay. Cargo today is pretty basic. You go to a kiosk, you use an interface, you load your ship, it automatically loads. Get in that ship, you drive that ship to a port, and then you sell what you bought. But there's not a lot of interesting choices there.
With the current implementation, whenever we designed it, we did not have the tractor beams that we have now. What that meant is that you were not able to pick up and manipulate the larger 1SU boxes. At the time, all that you could do was pick up the smaller 1/8 SU boxes, but this gave us a problem for piracy and looting in general, in that the really valuable things are sold and bought in these 1SU boxes in higher volumes, but the only thing the player can actually pick up are the smaller ones. So what we had to do is a kind of hack in the cargo system such that when a vehicle explodes, instead of generating the larger 1SU boxes on destruction, it actually generates the smaller ones in this kind of gamey, magical way.
Sometimes, maybe half the time that happens. And yeah, it's great when it does. But you see all those little boxes there? If they are Laranite, they're worth about 20 or 30 AUEC per box. So you're looking at, I don't know, that's got to be at least 50. There's probably something like 100 boxes scattered around here. So yeah, doing some quick math, if you spent 30 minutes with a crew of 3 or 4 pirates down here with tractor beams, scooping all of this cargo up into your cargo hold, and then sold it, you might make a profit of what, like maybe 10K total. So yeah, let's let's see what's changing here.
So that the player can actually go pick up some of the boxes from the destruction.
All right, let me give you an example. The C2 has 696 SCU, which equates to 5,568 1/8 SCU boxes that you have to loot. But the ship exploding should damage some of those boxes, and we want to have about 40 to 50% survive that explosion, so that's still about 2,000 1/8 SCU boxes.
But then there's server performance issues to consider. So what we've actually been doing is capping that at 10% boxes being generated. However, on top of that, it's an incredibly tedious experience, because now that's, if you were to do the math, about 400 boxes that you have to go pick up, and collecting all of those by hand without a tractor beam.
With the new system, we've gotten rid of the 1/8 SCU cargo containers. Everything is 1 SCU cargo containers. So in the case of the C2 with the 696 SCU, that would be 696 1 SCU boxes rather than 5,000 plus.
Every single one of those boxes is a real entity in the game, like any other entity in the game. It is tracked in the database as a persistent entity now that we have the new persistent entity streaming architecture. And it means that now that they're entities that are persistent, they can be interactable. So now you can do things like use the tractor beams to pull them out of the cargo hold or put them into a cargo hold. It also
You've been able to use tractor beams to manipulate the tiny little boxes if you wanted to. But it's awesome that we've got the big ones now. That'll make the job a lot faster. And hopefully those boxes will actually be worth a little something.
also means that whenever we do ship destruction with the new system, we don't have to generate anything. Instead, all that we do is we take the entities that were already created and we just simply detach them from the cargo hold and let them float in space. Now, we still want to have some of that explosive destruction, so there's a certain amount of variable amount of that cargo that is destroyed on ship destruction.
Actually giving you back somewhere, it's actually 0 to 90%. but that's calculated every time your ship explodes. So what happens then is now we're actually hitting that 40 to 50% number on average.
This means that both for players that want to reclaim the cargo that they lost on ship destruction, or for pirates that want to scoop up their ill-gotten gains, then they'll have an easier time to get at it, and there'll be more value there when they try to do so.
There is also the new commodity kiosk flow, which is a step in the right direction for helping you understand what you're buying and what you're selling and what's available at the places where you buy and sell commodities. It's new UI. It's the new building block UI, so it should be a lot easier to understand and gives you a graphical representation as you're buying and selling of how much space that you have on the ship that you're buying and selling into. 318 is not the end of the cargo refactor. There's lots of stuff that we're in the design process for right now, including manual loading and unloading, as well as automatic loading and unloading. We're also looking at some big box cargo missions that separate the cargo from the hauling professions. So that's something to look forward to. We have a lot more content coming that use these new features. We hope you enjoy it in 318.
And as a coda to all of that, Chris Roberts actually came by my desk the other day, and we talked a bit how it was unfortunate that we even have to allow players to lose 40 to 50% of the cargo. And we talked and decided that we would try to come up with an interim solution on our path to physicalized damage that would allow us to leave the husks of ships behind on vehicle destruction instead of just exploding them and erasing all the contents. This would allow players to explore the ships and find the cargo and physically move it off the husk.
That'll be really cool. That'll be nice if they don't just explode and scatter all over the place. I mean, maybe some do, sure, but then being able to get into that destroyed ship and pull the cargo out of it, that's awesome. Cooler still if it's possible for a player to maybe survive the destruction of the ship. Maybe in a larger ship, somehow somebody survives. That might be interesting gameplay there, if that was like a rare possibility. I think the big thing so far, really, that I'm hearing is two things. The one SCU boxes, that's awesome. That's a great change. And the second thing that they mentioned it, but they didn't really show too much of it, that you can move cargo on and off of cargo decks. That's going to be the game changer right there. That's the thing that we've all been waiting for a long time now.
Of the ships, rather than just generating a percentage of the boxes on destruction.
Like every other aspect of Star Citizen's continuing development, the cargo refactor isn't a one drop and it's done kind of feature. And the first implementation, much like persistent entity streaming alongside it in the upcoming Alpha 3.18, is about rebuilding existing functionality within an entirely new foundation that will now set the stage for the persistent universe to reach its fullest potential in subsequent patches to come. Well, we learned that the cargo refactor will physicalize the manner in which we transport goods in such a way that makes retrieval after disaster, or collection after piracy, easier and more rewarding than ever before. That it's the...
That's an important thing, the more rewarding bit. Which if you watched my live streams, you probably heard me talking about the very low amount of money for those boxes. So even if those one SCU boxes are only worth 200 AUEC, and you're looking at that full C2 worth of Laranite, you're still looking at picking up 600 boxes, which is insane. You need a team of like 20 people to do that efficiently. Those boxes are still worth such a small amount that, like, they need to be worth something, right? It needs to be rewarding. And that's something that you can only really get currently out of stealing Hadonite. Hadonite's the one thing you can steal that out of a rock, and you can take that over to any mining station or Grimhex and sell that Hadonite off at full price. So that means if you hit a rock that's even 50% full, you're getting a good bit of money for the time that you're spending. And that's really the key factor here is you don't have an army of 20 people to collect those 600 boxes out of that C2, then even if you can only find the time to grab 100 of those boxes, say, with a group of 5 people, it needs to be worth it for us to do that, because it's not only the collection of the box, finding the target, disabling the target, destroying the target. After you've done all of that, you then need to find the place to go sell those goods, get there, and sell them off, right? So it's a pretty big time investment for quite a few people, even if you're only running a crew of like 5, right? You're still looking at a lot of time spent between all of those people. And so that's really the one thing about piracy thus far in the game is, outside of stealing that Had Knight, stealing basically anything else is barely worth the time or not worth the time to actually collect it and then go sell it. So that's something that's really got to change here for piracy to actually thrive. These changes that we've got, they're great, right? Getting the box, the SCU boxes that's a great change. And being able to get them off the cargo decks is also awesome. It's going to be a game changer for pirates. But there are some other things that need to happen, right? If we're going to be boarding ships and we're going to be doing it in 0G, when you disable those ships, they can't be flying at 100 meters a second, or, they need to be stopped, right? So we need a way to do that currently. I mean, right now you can get out in front of them and shoot them with distortion weapons. This process can take up to 5 minutes. So while you're doing that, you also need to be continuing to keep that target disabled. And currently, with the way distortion is set up in EMPs, the way that it's functioning right now, the larger ships, it's very difficult or basically impossible to do that with any reasonably sized crew of pirates. I haven't been able to do it with a group of 10, say, but medium ships, smaller ships, you can shut those down no problem, port those no problem in 0G or in atmosphere. But they need to look at the way the cooldowns for the EMPs versus the restart time for the power plants. There needs to be some work there if pirates are supposed to be able to keep ships continuously shut down, which currently is true for small and medium ships, but not true for large ships. So yeah, that's another thing that needs to be addressed, right? If we're going to be boarding them, we need to, 1, be able to keep them disabled, and 2, they need to be slow enough where we can actually get out of our ships and get on theirs. Without some kind of ship-sized tractor beam, they need to just slow down of their own volition. Preferably gradually, but not, forever, right? If it's too abrupt, people are going to crash, but it needs to happen, in less than 5 minutes, maybe a minute or so. Anyhow, it's good news. It's not much news. And it's going to be great when we actually see C318, hopefully sometime soon. ? We'll see. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll be coming back at you with the next one soon.